Everybody, welcome to Visible Kindness, and today another episode. I was going to say another episode with Amanda Johnson, but this is not. This is the first time I've had Amanda on my show. She's like me a lot in storytelling, and storytelling is a big thing. What she's doing in her life it just literally blew me away because I'm looking forward to actually working with her down the road. And Amanda, I'd like it if you could introduce yourself, tell us what you do, where you're from, and give us that. Just before we record, I said, what would you tell people in a sentence? What is it that you do? And I liked it. And I already forgot because I'm still going through what I go through in the brain cavity of my life. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. My answer was story. So, Amanda Johnson, I am the CEO of a company called Saved by Story, which is a writing and publishing house where we help experts and storytellers and people who just have these burning stories that need to get out into the world. We help them figure out how to actually get it down on the page and then publish it and launch it and get it into the world. And sometimes they want to build brands on the other side, coaching businesses or speaking businesses. And so we sort of help them build the foundation for that. And the reason why, one of the fun facts about me is that I love story, but I don't really love books. So why do I
You know,
spend
you were telling me that before you recorded. I thought you've got to say that. That's like
this
me
is
saying, I
crazy.
don't really like being kind to people
The
because
first
sometimes I don't.
Yes, exactly. The first time that I said that, the first time that I realized that, I was on stage being interviewed in front of 300 people and, asking me like, why do you care about this? Why are you doing this? How long have you wanted to write a book, or when did your love of books start? And I thought I I I actually don't love books. And I just said it out loud like that in front of 300 people in this book coach. But I pulled it back together because the reality is that I don't like bad books. I don't like books that make me feel like I'm wasting time because I have, like most people, right, a whole slew of priorities. And learning is one of them, but it comes behind, putting food on the table and making sure my family knows that they feel loved. So if I'm going to steal time from a human or a project or something, I know I want to steal it for something that's going to enlighten me or inspire me or make me feel something that I really need to feel at that time. And so yeah, that's just a funny little fact about me. I love, love, love the books that come out of Saved by Story because I've had the opportunity to as the Oracle here, the Oracle from the Matrix, right?
Yes, I mean that's the first thing I thought. It was like, wow, you're the Oracle.
The Oracle, yeah, we all have story-based names. So my son is a business partner, and he is the wizard because, of course, his favorite series growing up was Harry Potter. So he's the business and fulfillment wizard. And then my sister is like this wildly, she's got so much diversity in her passion. She's like a writer and a traveler, and she's just good at everything. She's our designer. And so we call her the avatar because she bends all of the elements, right? She's sort of like operates at the center and plays. And so I'm the Oracle because I learned very early that questions are better than answers when you're trying to help someone get from where they are to where they want to be. And so I am always that person who will be in the room, and I often know the answer. I often remember the detail from their story or such, but it's always that question that opens up more possibilities for the story that they've been telling themselves or the story that's wanting to unfold before them on the page.
And
So
we also
yeah,
talked
I'm all
about
about.
how, I've had a couple of books that I've read from people that have sent them to me to read, and I actually couldn't read the book because it was so hard to read.
Mhm.
It was just a grind for me, and I just knew. And I'm not a writer. I've learned what like we were talking about. I've learned from reading books on how to write. I have a sister who's a published author and an expert author, and like you, the people that I get it. That's why I have not written my book because I actually I am ready to do that now. I've got one that's almost done, but I've learned how do you actually do that. But it's so interesting that finding out what it is you should write to market your business is so critical, and it can be it can be a waste and it can drive people away, unfortunately. And I think a lot of times people wouldn't know it.
Mhm.
Do you ever run into people who find you, they want to write a book or they've written a book and they either, like they found out that they need help,
Mhm.
they haven't written or they have written? Have you run into that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, thinking about it in terms of kindness, when we were talking before about the intersection of kindness and storytelling, I think that happens a lot of times because people have stories that they feel, for whatever reason, it wouldn't be kind for them to share. There's too much trauma, too much hurt. For instance, I have one client who's still in the community working on, I don't even know what number book this is, but she had a story of a spouse dying by suicide. And so you can imagine, 18 months, 2 years later, I meet her. She's had this idea that she wants to write this guide for people going through it because she's a mindfulness expert and just has all of these tools that have been keeping her above water in this horrible, shocking grief, right? And so she felt like she needed to help others, but still all of that pain so raw. And that was one of the first things that she said to me was, I don't really want to tell too much of the story because I don't want other people to feel what I'm feeling.
I get
And
it.
so
Yeah, I get
this,
that.
yeah, but there's also
I
this.
used to think that, but you got to think differently, right? Is that where you're
I
going?
do. And it's because I walked with so many people through that process. So one of the one of the things that individuals really need to do when they're feeling like, should I write this? Should I not write this? This is one of those stories. Maybe I shouldn't tell it because it's other people's stories, is to really give themselves permission to just write it for themselves. Because writing through a story, honestly, no editing. Don't don't edit out the name that you actually called that person in your head. Don't edit out anything. Just let it be 100% true. It really allows all of that junk that's still unprocessed to come up and out of your body so that you can get rid of it, look at it, witness it, decide what you think about it. Sometimes people write those things and they're like, wow, I had no idea. I had one client, she was so upset with me because she felt like I put a mean name. Like I called this doctor who was taking care of her daughter a bad name. And I said, I didn't write that. And she goes, well, I didn't write that. I said, let's go back because it's in a Google Doc. Let's go back in the history and see who wrote that. And she was horrified that she wrote that. But it's just an example of how we can give ourselves permission to let all of the stuff that we would normally or we'd expect other people to shame or dismiss or call dumb or fill in the blank, right? Whatever those stories are. If you give yourself the opportunity to really give yourself the kindness of telling the story as you experienced it, something happens to the actual writing. I had this one gentleman who wrote this entire book about, I mean, the very similar to your story about, having all of this abuse in the past and childhood, just this childhood that you're just like, how did you even survive this? And then you get to see how it gets sort of repeated and he plays a different role in the abuse moving forward. But there was always this sort of villain in his story. And he did so much work and all of these villains, he would write about them and you would think, wow, he's done his work around these people. There was this one that I was reading it and I just shut out the file. Like I just turned it off because it was like his energy just came out and slapped me in the face. That's how it felt while I was reading his words. And so I told him, I said, I think you might have more work to do around this guy. And he said, no, 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 I don't. It's fine. I said, well, I'm going to test it out. I'm going to send this, not tell anybody, blind test. I'm just going to have 3 people read it and see what they say. Every single one of them. This page, this paragraph. I don't know what it was, but I could not read another word. It felt like I got slapped. And so I went back to him and it was how do you do that, right? It's just he had to go through all of his practices and everything in his religious training that he knew helped him through the last few villains that he'd already worked through, told their stories, no slapping happened, you know? And so a few months later, he comes back and he says, "Okay, I'm ready." And I said, "Okay, let me pull up the file." So I pull up the file and I'm reading through it and I read the same exact words and it was gone. He ended up publishing the book with the same exact words, tested it out with everybody
How, well, so why did it work at that point?
because it was his energy. It was his
So it was the
energy.
same. So the before sentences and the after sentences were the same. That was the same. How could that be? Come on.
The same thing. It was his energy about that person
No
that
kidding.
came out and smacked everybody across the face. And as soon as he really processed it, like really got it out of his
Yeah.
system, it wasn't in the text anymore.
It is so interesting. You said something that is just so key. It just shows how smart my sister is, and you, because you're saying the same things. I have gone through this process of writing a storyline, right? The beginning, the middle, the denouement at the top, and the end, and then all the stories in between. And I got all this stuff I've written for an outline and the skeleton of it, and everything, and all these things. And my sister said exactly the same thing you said. She said, you need to sit down and just write out everything. Just write it all out. Don't pick don't pick all these things. You got a lot of things. Just write them all. And that is a wise thing to do.
Mhm.
Really
It is.
wise.
It is because otherwise you're doing the same thing that you've been doing that's sort of maladaptive that keeps us stuck in the same sort of behaviors and dynamics, right, of that original story, right? So anytime we're not ready or willing to confront that, we're still living in that dynamic somewhere in our lives because otherwise we would just look at it and say, "Oh, this is showing up over here. I'm just going to change this." No, it's something that we're sort of blind to. And so this process of looking into your story and looking for all the nooks and crannies, and you have to do that as a good writer because you have to invite the reader and your audience when you're a speaker, you have to invite them into a scene with you, which means that you have to connect with all of the senses. You have to help them understand what was going on between your ears, what was happening inside of your body. The more you do that, the more you bring people with you. And they get the opportunity to learn and transform and get motivated and heal even through the process of reading.
So
I've had that happen many times working with authors.
it makes me wonder if I'm ever going to write a story. I say that because, and I want to ask you this question. I I don't even know the year, but it's been well over 10 years, maybe 13 years or 15 years. I started writing a journal. And I want to ask you if, I'm sure you must have run into people that have done that and they use that as a resource, I suppose. And
Mhm,
I say quite often, there is no way I would be able to write my memoir if I did not have,
mhm,
because I would write, and I would never remember ever what I wrote,
mhm.
and I never planned to like, oh, this would be good for a memoir. What happened today when I said I was going to kill that guy? Yeah, put that in your memoir. Uh, I just did it to get everything out of me. I wrote, and then I also started to do my memoir in Microsoft database or whatever it's called, Microsoft Access. And so I have the year, every month, every day underneath that. And then it's just, I began to like use word dictation, your
Mhm.
voice instead of writing. And there's a lot of benefit to writing. But the benefit I found out to putting in the database is I can now search by keywords, and
Yeah.
which I found very interesting. Have you run
Mhm.
into people that record their journey as they're in the journey, whether it's in an electronic database or a journal that you help them with?
Yeah, a lot of people come with the different types of content that's already
Sure.
developed. Some of them have already tried to write the project, and so they come with that. And I say, if you hold that loosely, we'll probably find where to include certain parts of it. But as far as the journaling goes, I think it's really powerful to have written, but also the verbal, because writing and speaking use different parts of the brain and give you access to different memories. And so that's why, I'll have someone come in who is like, I've been in therapy, talk therapy for 10 years, and I did these three writing prompts and I got the answer that I've been looking for 10 years in these clinical appointments. How did that happen? Well, because it was different conditions and you were using your hand and you got access to wisdom in your body that
Yes.
you don't
Yeah.
have access to when you're speaking it. So it's not about one is better than the other. A lot of what I'm doing here at Saved by Story is leveraging all of it. So there's the writing that has all of that. Go back to what you've written. Here are some more prompts to get more clarity about those things, but also the verbal storytelling in circles with other storytellers and people. What ends up happening is they'll get a few chapters in and they'll show up to we call them cocoon sessions, and they're just having one of these moments and they've completely forgotten a part of their story. And what do you know? Someone in the space goes, "Oh, no, no, wait a minute. Didn't that, you know, oh, because when there's trauma inside the story, it splinters or fractures timeline. And it's almost like to protect you, your psyche takes parts of the story that happened and hides it in different places, right?
Yeah.
These physical senses get hidden over here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the meaning that you gave it was hidden over here, and so when you're speaking, you might get access to this, but you don't get access to this. But when you're storytelling and you're trying to bring someone in, you have to sort of pull from all of these
Yeah.
different places with
Yeah.
your hand as you're writing or typing. And it is a very different, but to your point about the journaling, I just want to say this. The author that I told you wrote the name. She called the doctor a name. It was like, oh, I can't believe she came with 900 pages of journal. Her daughter had been severe brain damage in a skiing accident. And she was very like loved and well known in her community. And so you can imagine everyone calling for updates and trying to understand what was happening, what they needed, and how they could help. Her daughter-in-law put her on Care Bridges. I think it was called Care Bridges at the time, where it's this online portal where they could go in and they could write updates every day. And then everyone who subscribed would get the update. So it really allows families to just be present and then do short little updates here and there. Brilliant. This woman is a dynamic woman of God, was a leader, youth leader in ministry. And so when she was updating, here she is, this mom sitting by her daughter's bedside, wondering if her daughter is going to survive this. And if she does, would she have any quality of life? Right. So as a mom, she's just wrecked and scared. As a woman of faith, she's hanging on to all of the promises. She's looking for all of the good that's coming from the situation. And so what landed in all of her care pages, sharing with everybody else was all the good stuff, right? This is how God showed up today. And this is the promise that we're hanging on to. And these are the updates. And ooh, it's scary right now, but we're believing, right? And
Mm.
so when I read it, I felt like I only experienced one dimension of this human. I didn't get to understand what the mom was going through at all. I saw the nurse, I saw the advocate, and I saw the woman of faith. And God bless her, dynamic, powerful, inspiring. But when you're thinking about who's going to be able to read that book, who's going to need to read that book, they're going to be the people who don't know how to advocate, who may be struggling with their faith, right?
Yeah.
And so, in order to connect with them, she had to be a mom too and open up.
Right. Right.
By the time she got to me, it was about 13 years of stored up grief as a mom. Her daughter came back miraculously from this. She has this beautiful life. She's arrested in some ways. And she'll just never experience life the way that this client imagined that she would. And so every time someone else in her friend group moves along, Mom feels sad. It's grief. It's piling up. It's piling up. So every time she goes to sit down to write her story, I don't know how to do this. I'm confused. I have all this 900 pages of content and I can't make it work. Why? And that's what I told her. I think you might have to cry a lot. And cry she did. But it's one of the most powerful books I've ever worked on.
I like running into people like yourself who really understand stories. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, that's just obviously rough and whatnot. Everything in there is rough, but it's nice listening to you and just how you have the skills on not only writing, but it's knowing people's hearts and their minds on how to really help them and to get their story out of them. It's really quite something. I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. Uh, what is your favorite book? What is your favorite book?
I have so many. My current favorite is one that I had the opportunity to work on because it helped to heal me. There's a series called The Old Glory Saga, and the first volume is called Lockdown 2020. It's alternate dystopian history. Um, but when I read the outline, which was 800 pages, it was a
Oh,
mad scientist writing system he figured out. He wrote 1,500 pages in 6 months. And so we had to split it into three books. So he just launched the second one. And at the end of the second one, there's a scene that as I was working on it, because my process with him, he's second language English. And so my process with him was always amping the storytelling, but also attending to some of the stuff that happened with the English. And by the time we were
is
at this
that recent?
point,
We're talking about a book that's like right now.
yeah, he just launched the second one at the
This is
beginning.
your most, this is wow, this is wild.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is and there's a scene in there that when I was helping him to pull the scene apart and like really make it as powerful as it could be. Of course, when we do that, we're sourcing from all of our own content, right? And so the tears that I had when I was reading his outline were related to the fact that I had so much in common with his main character. And there was a wound that I had been chipping away at for 10 years in my journals, in my, in my sessions. I just like every direction. And I made progress. I could manage all of my behaviors around it, but the hurt wasn't gone. So I'm working on this scene and I realized, holy crap, I'm this character and I'm this character and I'm this character. I saw
Oh,
all of the dynamics of a scene that I lived when I was 7,
wow.
without any of my own story getting in the way. All the stories that I put on that scene. And yeah, it healed me up. I had to go to bed for the day. And I haven't been the same
That
since.
has a huge impact on you. That is an incredible answer.
Dramatic narrative healing. It's
Huh.
real.
I'm also surprised how new and recent that is. Let me, I have a couple more questions I want to ask you. What is the most, what is the most important thing or the best advice you can give to people? We've talked about a lot, but if you're going to nail it down into they want to write their books, and there's so many people who are doing that, like we talked earlier, what is the best advice you can give them?
Oh my gosh, there's so much to say.
Yeah, I'll give questions before the show.
Yeah, yeah. I think it all boils all of the advice that I could give sort of boils down to the principle of safety. I always use the butterfly metaphor. The magic eggs turn into these wild, crazy, inspired caterpillars that just digest. I mean, it's very much like that inspiration phase where you're writing all of your ideas down. You got a million journals and post-it notes, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a bestseller, right? And then all of a sudden, I had the opportunity to watch this process with my son when he was about 3. The caterpillar just drops upside down and looks at the world differently, and it starts to wrap itself up in a cocoon, which is brilliant. it's the imprint, right? And there's no resistance. And I remember watching that moment and hearing the voice say, "Why do you resist?" And I thought, man, our stories, our journeys, the plans for our life seem to already be written to some degree, right? Like I call it, you may call it God or the universe, or I call it co-author, right? Co-author has written in all of these possibilities and plot twists and all of this stuff. And then I get to co-author my part of it with my responses and my yeses or my refusals. And and so there's always this moment when you get into a project where you start to write or you have a conversation with someone about your big dreams and it feels like something has gone horribly wrong. You've slammed into something. You feel confused, you feel angry, you have maybe a physical symptom that you haven't had for a long time. Maybe if you have a an addiction pattern in your history and you haven't suffered with it for a long time, all of a sudden it's right there up in your face again. And you're like, what in the world is happening? You don't realize that all of that started because you started to go back into story. And that's the story gets wired in with all of those old things. And so for me, my best advice is create safety. Create safety in by hiring someone who will support you, making sure that you have all the people around you that you might need for the journey, therapists, sponsors, you name it, best friends who are the only ones who know that you're writing, however that's going to go. Your spiritual practices, your physical practices, like all of those things create a level of safety
You're
so
giving
that,
me more than one piece of advice.
you know, right? Safety. That's what I'm saying. It's like
I'm
all
just
the
kidding. No,
things.
no, I'm just giving you a hard time. No,
Yeah.
it's preparation that you're talking
It
about.
is. It's the and it's you never do it perfectly. You know, you
No,
always get in, you still have that, but at least you have sort of this like you know it's coming and you know that it's just about toggling and refining something in the safety system versus I'm going to slam the computer shut and I'm not coming back to it for 3 years. And then I'm going to tell myself that whole time I'm such a failure. I don't know what my problem is. I wrote a dissertation and I can't write a book and I should be doing this and I'm failing that, and like all the head trash that people have to deal with because they don't know what's really happening. They're going back to something that's vulnerable that if it were a child, they would be trying to figure out how to make that child feel safe so that they could say what they needed to say, you know, and get what they needed to get out of the process that they were engaging.
you have a lot of experience, a lot of talent. Uh, Let me ask you two more questions because we're coming to the end. I like this one. I don't usually ask this one. It's a good one. What is the what is the main catalyst? What is it that has inspired you to get into doing what you do? Like, what is the if you could say this is the main thing? Because I it's a good question. Like, are you doing it like my old career? I did it because it was good money. It's not a good reason to do something, but that's what it was. I do things very differently now. My catalyst is different. What is yours?
Story has always been trying to save me. And so if I get to participate in, it's tried to save me through movies and books and all of these different places. I've always gotten the next right step. Um, and so, and I've been pulled out of, an abyss that I was alone in because I didn't have any people in my life who I could go to on this particular topic. So I went to a bookstore and son of a gun, if that book didn't fall off the shelf right in front of me, and gave me the language that I needed and a few skills that took me to the next season. And so um, I hate feeling alone when I feel like I'm doing something really important. And so when people are doing something as important as sharing a story and more importantly, healing an old story, they shouldn't be doing that alone. That's not what we're made for. People need people in
Right.
order to really heal. So that's what motivates me.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really nice. Now we've come to my favorite question I like to ask, and that is, can you share with us? Not can you, but share with us uh, a moment of kindness recently that came into your life that either you put out and gave, or that came into your life?
Oh my
It could be
goodness.
something simple and small. It could be something like, oh wow, it's really big.
Um, yeah, there have been a few things recently, but you know what? The it's the little things, right? It's the I mean, I have big things and they seem really important, but it's the small things. It's people knowing the season that I'm in and checking in on me, right? People understanding the goals that I've set and asking me how those are going and how they can help. Those are the it's people just being good to each other that I love.
Amanda, we'll have to do this again sometime. I thoroughly enjoyed our time, and I can't believe how fast it went. I love listening to you. I love that we connected. I really hope to take advantage of what you do for helping writers in what I'm planning on doing with my book. But I really appreciate you coming out and sharing what you shared with us today. It was really, really nice.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love talking story.
Awesome.
And I love talking story with people who are happy to share theirs too.
Right. Well, take care. Let's do it again.
Okay, sounds good.